So you helped write the DevSecOps course for Checkpoint, correct?
Yes. So I basically work for Not So Secure,
Right.
and Not So Secure is in partnership with Checkpoint. And I wrote the course of DevSecOps along with my colleagues, and I also deliver the course for our clients and at conferences. So in the upcoming OWASP AppSec DC conference, I'm delivering DevSecOps there.
Nice. So like, what were some of the things you were kind of like thinking about as you were writing the course? Because I know DevSecOps is like a newish term. I think somebody at AWS spoke about it like 3 years ago, and now it's finally catching up to the rest of the world. What are some of the key things that you were thinking about as you were kind of making the course and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the key thing that we wanted to do is basically most of our clients and most of the organizations today are moving to DevOps, as you also mentioned, right? So with DevOps comes, so with DevOps you do get the speed and the agility to move forward with your IT, but at the same time there is a lot of security related challenges. So on an average, you might know, right? On an average, a DevOps organization deploys more than 10 changes in the production a week. I mean, it might be more, it might be less, but then you can imagine changing your production systems at such high speed and not thinking about security.
Right.
So DevSecOps is all about injecting security into that process, so that at least we have certain level of assurance before the changes get moved into the production.
Right. Yeah, we at Cybrary we deploy probably 20 to 40 times a day.
Wow.
So I mean, we were lucky enough that we kind of drew a line in the sand and then basically re-architected a lot of our systems and stuff. So it made it easy to kind of build for that going in.
Excellent.
And so we do a lot of the security checks. Some of the challenges that I have are these devs want the builds to happen like very, very, very fast.
Yes.
And so the problem for me is how do I get all of the scans, how do I get all this information and have it still build fast enough is
Correct.
a lot of the problems I'm kind of going for. And then I've noticed another issue, like our developers want it all in one pane of glass, right? Like they want it all to look the same every time. They don't want to have to log into like 15 different systems to
Correct.
see all these things. And it's good that like the industry I think is finally kind of moving to this type of stuff. Like
Yes.
a lot of things now are API first when they
Yes,
develop the
yes.
software. However, I've seen some vendors here today at BlackHat that still don't support APIs. And
That's surprising.
yeah, which is weird for me because like as a DevOps guy that's trying to build out security in my workflow and stuff, like that's a non-starter. Like I'm not going to look at your software anymore. Like
Right,
that's basically it. If I can't basically hack it into Jenkins to do what I want, like it's kind of done.
Right.
I'm interested to know, you said you've given the course before?
Yes.
I'm interested to know like what types of people were like in the course, like how are they kind of thinking of it? Is it you're only getting the super technical people, or are there a lot of like higher ups that are just trying to kind of figure out what this DevOps thing is, and so they're sitting in on the course trying to kind of get that? Or is it still like a very super technical group of people that are kind of coming?
So it was in my past trainings, it was basically a mixed bag of people. Of course, I had very few who were at the top management or probably at a head level or a manager level. Mostly, I had interactions with the developers because they were really interested in knowing how security can be embedded in an automated fashion.
Right.
But very surprisingly, almost 40 to 50% of my audience, they were not even doing DevOps. So they were very much fascinated by the way I was showing DevOps, and they were very much interested in first getting their organization into DevOps rather than before jumping into DevSecOps.
Right.
So even so DevSecOps was definitely one very interesting thing that they learned, but they also learned how DevOps really happens during my course.
Right. So I'm actually some of these I'm assuming they came from traditional companies and things like that.
Yes.
Where they basically saved all the like security scanning for the very end.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
were they all just like blown away that like, because I was at a company that got acquired, and that's kind of the process that we were thrown into.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we were already doing DevSecOps, our acquiring company basically didn't. And so it was a huge like shift back in time for me to kind of have to wait on this security team to like do their things, and I was just like, I got into I was trying to like figure out what they were doing for their scans so that I could just add them into the pipeline so that like I could just feed them reports, and they didn't slow me down. But that was a challenge. Some of these, I think, some of these older organizations that are kind of built that way, they still have these silos, and I think that's a huge challenge trying to break that silo open to get that sort of knowledge into the rest of the team. Right? Because you want them to. If for so long security was just like, oh, that team handles it, but now it's like you expect almost every developer to have like at least a very like minimum level of security awareness when they're kind of building these systems. They have to think about it earlier and earlier in their process, and I think training like DevSecOps training and things like that starts getting the conversation going, and people starting to think about how can I take these things that used to run at the end, how can I move them further forward in the pipeline so we can get better information faster and things like that. So what else did you guys kind of like, what else is kind of involved in your course? Are you just talking about like CI/CD platform stuff, or are you kind of anything else that you guys are kind of working on in your course?
Yeah, so we start off explaining DevOps, so what exactly is DevOps, and I also show a demonstration, a practical demonstration that I change my code, and the moment I commit my code, I can see the changes happening in the production server. So that is one part, and then slowly and steadily at every stage, we integrate different tools. So at the during the build stage, we integrate the SAST and the SCA tools. Then after the build has happened, then we integrate the DAST tools, that is Dynamic Application Security Testing, like OAS ZAP. Then after that, we have infrastructure scans, we have OpenVAS, we show how OpenVAS can be integrated, we show how containers can be scanned using Claire. Then towards the end, we show how compliance as code can be integrated using Inspec. So these are the tools that we integrate throughout the existing DevOps pipeline that was demonstrated, and at each stage how it works, how the reports are generated, and how we are collecting the data and showing it in a centralized database using vulnerability management tools. After the entire technical stuff, then we have a good discussion around one very important aspect about DevSecOps. So what people think that DevSecOps is just about tools, but that's really wrong. DevSecOps is also about the culture. So as you mentioned that your developers have certain level of security awareness. That is a prerequisite for a DevOps cycle. And what I basically call them is security champions, right? So I stress on a lot on talking about security champions, who they are, how you can identify them, and how you can train them, how you can create security champions in your organizations. Another aspect about DevSecOps is that no longer you should bring vulnerable stuff to start with. So when you start with, it should be secure. So secure by default is another aspect that that we talk about in our training. So it's about tools as well as about the culture that brings about the entire DevSecOps transformation.
Nice. Anything you're excited to see at BlackHat this year? Any trends? Anything sparked your interest today after walking around?
Not much, but we have DevSecOps. There is a DevSecOps a talk being delivered by our director of Not So Secure, Anand Srivastav, and I'm pretty excited about attending that talk as well.
Yeah, hopefully a lot of people go and then make our lives easier. So, all right, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.